Today's Q&A is about pet food. The question is, are there any restrictions about which foods you could feed your pets? Well, pets don't have to keep kosher, of course, and they can really eat anything. They can eat tray food also. That's perfectly fine. However, there are certain kinds of food that are not kosher, which not only are we not allowed to eat them, but we also can't have any hana, any benefit or pleasure from them. So, therefore, those foods we can't feed to our pets, not because the pet can't eat them, but because the owner is having hana, having a benefit from this non-kosher food, and that's the reason why you can't feed it to the pet. There's three basic groups of foods that would fall into this category, or that most relevant to us that would fall into this category. The first is milk and meat that will cook together. That's possible chalav. I'm going to give you some details about that in a minute. The second group is chametz on Pesach, or even on Erev Pesach, after a certain time in the morning when you now have hana from Pesach. I'll talk about some details about that also. And the last group is things made with non-kosher wine or grape juice, which according to many opinions is considered to be asur b'hana also. The details of that we're not going to talk about, but if it would have, wine or grape juice in it, that would also be something that would be, that's not kosher, that would also be something that you couldn't feed to a pet. So let's talk a little bit about basar b'chalav, what it means for something to be basar b'chalav in a way that you're not allowed to have hana from it. And that is like this. The first thing is, it's only related to beef, lamb, and goat meat. Those types of meat can be basar b'chalav, but let's say poultry could not be basar b'chalav. That's asur b'hana, and it also doesn't apply to non-kosher species like pork. It has to be from these three types of animals: beef, lamb, or goat. They don't have to be kosher to be basar b'chalav. That's asur b'hana, but they have to be from one of those three species. It also that's for the meat side of it. The milk side of it includes most dairy products like whey, milk powder, and casein, but it does not apply to lactose because lactose is only milchig d'Rabbanan. It's called mei chalav. So since as such, if you cook lactose with meat, you're not allowed to eat it. It's not kosher, but it's not asur b'hana. There's no isur hana to eat that food. And the last rule for basar b'chalav is that it only applies when the milk and the meat were cooked together. But if they're just blended together, that mixture, you're not allowed to eat it, but it's not asur b'hana, and therefore you can feed it to your pet. So again, those are our three rules to make something basar b'chalav to the point that you can't feed it to your pet. It has to be all those three: the right kind of meat, the right kind of milk, and they have to be cooked together. Now, as far as chametz in pet food, so we're not allowed to have hana from chametz. That's why we can't feed them to our pets, but we are allowed to have hana from kitnias. So therefore, pets can eat foods that are made from rice or corn or soy or other types of kitnias. We're not allowed to eat them, and we therefore would wash the dishes. If we feed pets kitnias foods on Pesach, we would wash those different dishes separate from our Pesach dishes because we can't eat that, but the pets would be allowed to eat them. Now, when we're looking not for kitnias for the pets, not worried about the kitnias, worried about chametz that's in there. So, of course, we look at for the 5 grains: wheat, rye, barley, spelt, and oats. So those are obvious because those, as soon as they mix with water, will become chametz. But you also need to look out for something called brewer's yeast, which is a common flavor ingredient. It's chametz. Grain distillers, dried yeast, malt, pasta, and certain other words that refer to chametz ingredients like flour, gluten, middling, starch. Those are just a bunch of common examples of things that might be chametz and that are likely chametz and that would be in a pet foods. Now, one more thing is that pet foods tend to include lots of vitamins and minerals, amino acids, and all kinds of things like that. Things which may possibly be chametz. There's no realistic way for consumers to figure out which ones are or not okay, but as a rule, there's such small amounts of the food that they're always bottled. So we, assuming that the pet food was made before Pesach, which if you buy one commercially it would be, then we can assume that there's not a problem to use that on Pesach. So in picking a food for Pesach, picking a food for year-round or for Pesach, you have to make sure for year-round it doesn't have basar b'chalav, that's asur b'hana, it doesn't have stam yayin, and for Pesach to make sure it doesn't have chametz in it. The CRC happens to actually approve a certain brands of pet foods to meet these criteria that are okay for year-round and for Pesach use, and there are lots of other ones that are also okay. And you need to speak to someone, either if you know yourself about ingredients, or speak to someone who does know ingredients to be able to read through it to tell you if this is okay for year-round and for Pesach use.